Oh, it's recording? It's oh yeah, we're in a mini. Oh, I gotta check my second eye myself.
Look who's the spec boy now.
Spec boy. Autophiles, we're in a Mark IV MINI Clubman.
A proper old car.
Old school, not the oldest of Mini, but I mean it belongs to that era lah. But it's a bit different in the front. This is a Clubman.
Yeah.
So the front is a little bit longer. It goes out and comes back down a little bit.
A bit more squarish.
A bit more squarish. Yes, more chrome, and all the lights are in the chrome cluster, as opposed to being separated on the side by itself. So the whole front grille is a chrome grille incorporating the front lights.
It's not the classic
It's
mini
not
look.
it's not the classic mini look.
Not the round light.
Yeah.
So first impressions.
First impressions. Can't wear shoes when
Can't wear shoes. Okay, this is not the first time I'm driving a classic mini.
Yeah.
I drove my friend's classic mini with the round light before.
Yeah.
I remember it being distinctly very fun, very direct,
Yeah.
and just so damn easy to drive.
Yeah.
For older car.
Yeah, correct.
This is a slightly more difficult than what I remember.
Is it?
Yeah, because the clutch is
Shorter.
the travel is that short.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the biggest complaint. Everything else is about what I remember.
Yeah.
The steering feel, the angle of the steering like a lorry.
This is an issue with older cars. When you started driving cars from the 60s and the 50s, and you start to gain a bit of respect and appreciation for how people used to live their life. I have a Jaguar Mark II, 60s, I think early 60s. The car is 50 years old. Man, it's tiring to drive. A lot of modern cars, I mean, you just get in, start the engine, just go, man.
Yeah.
So much ease. The classic cars it needs a bit of work lah. I mean, you gotta get into it. That's why I guess only cars with some fun factors will retain its worth keeping. Because if it's not nice to drive, there's no point going through the trouble of driving them.
And Mini is definitely one of those everyday cars which is worth keeping.
Yeah, it's surprising because it is an everyday car, isn't it? It's a little everyday car. And the funny thing is, I took it out for breakfast this morning, and I found a parking in a place that no other car could fit today. I just slot right in front of it and looked at everybody and go, what you gonna do? It is an engineering marvel.
Yeah.
To design something literally so small. I mean, classic cars are smaller in dimensions on the outside. Mini, it's just so small. Yeah. It looks like a car for babies, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, Suzuki Swift Sport.
It looks huge. It looks huge. So this car is literally just so small. But yet, I wouldn't say it's spacious, but it fits both of us.
Everything is miniaturized.
Yeah, everything is small, man.
The glove box is the size of your hand. Looking at the gauges as well, everything is so small. There's in the temperature gauge, it's like you have that much clearance, and then there's a tiny gauge in between. Once I get used to it, I can operate everything with ease.
Yeah.
My steering is not touching my knees.
Yeah.
It's angled in a way where it clears my knees just about. So it's actually quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is. Engineering marvel, packaging marvel. And it's all front wheel drive, and yet it drives so sharp, isn't it? The way it corners. The suspension travel is very minuscule.
I heard the suspension in this car is actually like a conical rubber thing.
Originally I think it's hydraulic. But everybody changed it to that. Right. That rubber thing, the whole rubber piece.
It's just like a mount, right?
Yes, it is literally a mount. Supposedly lasts a lot better than the original hydraulic, I think. But this kind of car don't negotiate bumps very well, to be honest. But the good thing is you can fit really big wheels.
And the bigger wheels don't affect the suspension.
No, not really.
It can't get worse than this.
Yeah. And the engine is quite torquey. You step on it, go.
I'm not even in the right gear and it's still pulling us up. But this whole thing is an echo box.
It is. And VH is actually quite bad. Or should I say non-existent? You have to make a lot of modification to make it sound a lot better. Because the whole thing is like a box on the inside with metal on the side. Yeah. So the whole thing vibrates and
everything is cool.
Yeah. So performance, man.
So this is a 1 litre
4-cylinder. Yeah, so power-wise, I think for up to say 110 it's okay. I don't think the car should be driven any faster than after that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. But within the range of in city drive, the car is really responsive. And it zips around like a freaking go-kart, doesn't it?
It is. I have no need to take it faster than whatever the hell I'm going. I think I'm going was 60.
Around 60 to 70. You can have fun from practically standstill.
Yeah.
The moment you take off, it's like, wow, I'm all over the place, man. Yeah. Gear, 4-speed.
It's sufficient lah. I mean, any
it's
faster than third gear, I'm already a bit scared. All the noises.
Yeah. It matches to the engine pretty okay. I think back then it was mighty rapid.
Yeah.
You know why? Because roads are not as wide as what we have today. They're not as straight as what we have today. There's no highways. If you're talking about a city roundabout, this is more than enough, man. This is mighty fast. Actually, it zooms around faster. I mean, it responds at a low range way faster than a lot of modern cars. And the steering is so direct, isn't it?
Yeah. And relatively light.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else.
And there is no power steering here. This is all direct drive.
But yeah, you have to get used to the gearing.
Yeah.
Because most of us know 5-speed.
Yeah.
Second gear is for everything.
Yeah.
Here, I think first gear is for some things.
First gear is quite important actually.
Yeah.
For a lot of modern cars, the first gear is completely useless. In fact, in a lot of diesels that are driven, the first gear is completely useless. But in this car, the first gear is quite usable. The second and third gear is like what you shift between in a city most of the time.
Fourth gear, I don't think.
Rare lah. I mean, you're cruising in a highway, then you go into fourth gear. But it's not as responsive. When the moment you go into fourth gear, you know you are on the higher end of the tail end of the power band.
Power band, yeah.
That's it. You're not going to get much more out of it.
Compared to your Mark II and your Volvo, the Amazon.
No, man. Say Mark II is about 1.5 generation older than this. So the handling is much more ancient. You know, this has a relatively modern steering wheel. Look at that.
Yeah.
Right?
This steering looks like
very modern.
80s.
It's like from the 80s. It is from the 80s. It's taken from a Japanese spec MINI. This MINI is significantly more modern. It feels like driving a late 80s Japanese car, but bumpier and more responsive. Whereas Japanese car would be less powerful, but more forgiving. Yeah, more forgiving, but less powerful. So it feels mighty modern for a classic in that sense. So when it first came out, my goodness, this car was blown some mind, man.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I think the first generation of the MINI, when it came out, the Mark II was still for sale. Consider that. Yeah, and they are generations apart in terms of technology. I mean, in terms of design and out of the box thinking in technology.
You can see why the British got a bit lazy and not updating it.
Yeah, I mean this represented British engineering. You know, this is problem solving solutions.
Yeah.
That add value. Yeah, that with whatever resources that you have.
It has no safety belt.
No.
I was driving it without a safety belt. I didn't even realize.
No safety belt, brother.
Oh no, Anthony Loke. Please forgive us.
Anthony Loke will have to deal with it. It's called.
Performance, honestly, for the size, I don't think anything can come close.
To be honest, for the age, it's f***ing amazing, man. I've driven so many classic cars. Even American classic don't feel like this. Anything below 100, amazing, man. You have torque at every gear.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can be one gear wrong and you'll be fine. And this, we're talking about a 4-gear car, 4-gear car with the allowance of being in the wrong gear. It's something unheard of. Modern car with 8 gears and 9 gears, being in the wrong gear, fine, man. Many Japanese cars, I still remember driving in the 90s with 5 gears. You're in the wrong gear, the whole car will shake, man. Yeah. So that's performance.
You have to really appreciate the ergonomics, right? Because instead of letting you sit back, you just have to position your seats like there's a chair in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're fine, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing on the sides, nothing at the directly in front of you. Once your legs are at a 90-degree angle. I realized when I was driving also, your hands were crossed. And then when you're driving now, I feel like crossing my hands. I think it's the absence of the safety belt.
It's not just that. I think it's because there is nothing to rest your hand on. Complete emptiness. It's a complete empty box in the middle. Completely nothing. So
and if you don't,
you have to brace. You know.
You have to brace. Constantly in the brace position, and then your legs, if you're not careful, will be rubbing up against the gear knob.
21st century problem.
20th century problem.
No, I mean it's a problem for 21st century men
Oh, yeah,
who
yeah,
used to, being tucked inside your own zone.
Yeah.
Well, cars back in the past, it's not like that. They even had like bench seat, in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, traditionally classic cars that people appreciate as it gets old, are usually quite rare.
Yeah.
They are sports car, very beautiful, very expensive cars. Very rarely do you see pedestrian cars becoming classic. Yeah, but there are two European pedestrian cars that consistently are treated as classic, which is MINI and the Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
I haven't driven a Beetle in a long time, but MINI, you can see why. There's something special about the way it drives, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
It doesn't have Nazi principles attached to it permanently for the rest of the time.
I heard the Beetle doesn't drive that great.
Yeah. I heard it's swallowy.
Yeah,
and
it's not great to drive.
indirect. I mean, the car was made as a people's car.
Yeah. But this is people's car as well.
True.
And it drives so freaking well. Compared to other classics that I have, to be honest, the Mark II is almost 2 generations away. The Mark II drives like something from the 50s and early 60s.
Yeah.
You have to crank the front. that generation of cars, it can be very tiring. I have another car that I've owned is a Volvo 123. Volvo 123, which is the 2-door version of the 122. It is
Amazon.
Yes, it is relatively modern compared to the Mark II. The problem with the 122 is that it is a boring drive.
Right.
It's not a great drive. It's a well-built car. It's solid, completely not fun at all. Not responsive, drives like a tank. Nothing great about it other than the fact that it looks great today and it's great in your head.
Right.
And you feel great about it. That's all. It's not that special. So yeah, the MINI is genuinely something special. Design, well, it's a box with very small wheels.
I honestly feel the MINI is more than a box. This is iconic. The moment you look at it, despite having so many different identities for different markets and different models and all that, you immediately see one, even if it's branded as a Austin or Morris or whatever.
You call it a MINI.
You call it a MINI.
And I think BMW furthered that branding significantly.
They put some effort into it, despite it being a very bare bones, basic economy car. I mean, look at it, the air vents here.
Yeah.
There's even the little shapes here correspond with the
With
vents.
that little bit here, right?
And then they keep on the bench.
A for effort lah.
It's really A for effort, man. If you go to the Japanese car of this era,
They won't bother.
you won't bother. Everything's just a
won't
flat
bother.
surface.
Yeah,
And when they try to do style, it's just like it's just cringy.
Yeah. I mean, contextually speaking, it's true. I mean, if you ask me, at the tail end of the British Empire, this was the greatest gift to the world I think the British have had. I mean, coming out of the 19th century into the 20th century, Britain is in a decline. And in its one of the last days, British manufacturing's last days, they gave us MINI. And I think in terms of engineering, packaging, marketing, it was a genius move. And not only that, it is an amazing car to drive. I know because of the sheer number of MINIs on the road, it can be very easy to take this car for granted. You don't realize it sometimes. A MINI running beside you, and from the 60s, a MINI running beside you, you don't even bother looking at it sometimes. But the moment you come to own one, or you get to sit in one, or your friend has one, and you get in touch with it, then you realize there's something special about this little car. And it's amazing. It is an amazing package because your expectation is so low. Parts are abundant. I was told by the mechanics, whatever you want to do to the car, you can.
But the parts are from where?
I don't know. If you're thinking of buying a classic car and you're thinking of collecting classic car, I would say MINI would be a good starting point, because anything else gets pretty scary after that. I've owned quite a few classic cars before. These things can break your bank, man, and they can go really wrong. So a MINI is a good place to start. And you won't be disappointed because, to be honest, even the best classic out there, it's marginally better than this.
Right.
Yeah. But you have to pay at least 10 to 20 times more.
Okay, so how much would a car like this in running condition, not perfect condition, how much is it worth?
Somewhere between 15 to 20,000.
It's okay.
That's okay.
For a car that...
Yeah, you can get a running condition MINI for 15 to 20k. Very, very beautiful condition, you can get 20 over k. But I wouldn't advise you to go for really pretty ones because you have to treat them with extreme care. And for classic cars, it's quite hard. I mean, coming to own classic cars, even pristine looking classic cars, those cars we saw in Out of Speed, To be honest, every single one of them has outstanding problem, the list of 3 pages now. I'm not kidding you. I've owned classic car. The best of condition has 3 pages of problem to fix. So start with a reasonable condition. On the body, as long as not too much rust, not cancerous rust, mechanically sound. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. Mechanically sound. Work on it, buy it cheap. 10, 15, 20,000, and then maybe over the next 3 to 4 years of ownership.
What you say is true, because if you get something that's in pristine condition, you might be too afraid to start driving.
You will be the weakest link.
Yeah,
you will break it.
Yeah, and you might expect, oh, I got a perfect looking car.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me very little to maintain.
Yeah.
And then when things start to go wrong, you're like, oh no, I could have just gotten the cheaper one.
Correct.
And then built it up.
Correct. And also because no matter what, an old car has a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So you will need to know the car from doing it.
Yeah.
You can't know a car unless you put effort into trying to suffering problem like can't start just now. You know what I mean? Those kind of issue. Oh, now I know the wiring there is a bit loose. I better go tie it back. So there are always problems. So you need to start with something more reasonable. If something is overly done up, overly modified, or overly perfect, you don't know what is going on. You cannot form that attachment with your car, and that is what makes classic car special. It's both in the eyes of the observer outside of you, envying you in your head lah, and also in your head.
People are walking around this car and stopping. The uncle is
They did oh, I'm surprised. So yeah, that is the joy of owning a classic car. You know people are staring at you, and you love the attention. You like to flaunt it. Go ahead, but you gotta know your car, man. Get ready to get greasy. Yeah, that's every time I need to start my classic car once a month I do that, and that is a half a day job to start the 3 classic. I have to it's a half a day job to jump them,
diagnose all the problems.
Yeah, and all the problems that you can have. It's a half a day job, but it's rewarding. Yeah, and it doesn't have to break the bank.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Nice, huh?
No stars necessary.
No stars necessary. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And for a car this old, to be completely running and
okay, we're idling, talking. Wow.
It's idling smoother than my car. And you really have to slow down for bumps.
Yeah.
Oh, another mini.
Hey, step aside, you thick boy.
So just so you know, this is not a real mini.